What's going on, guys? We are back. We are here to talk more about the FIFAe World Cup, and we're going to focus in today on the rosters because obviously some countries had qualifiers, some were just handpicked, but there was some questionable choices, at least what seems like from the naked eye before knowing about any information behind the scenes. So we're going to talk about the top 5 surprises on these national rosters. And then we'll explain maybe why this happened across the board, and most of them have pretty valid reasons. So let's get into it. We're going to bring up the player groups that we saw in a previous video. And let's go right into it. So I'm going to start at number 5, and this is going to be majorly scuffed because that's just how I do it. But we're going to start with Portugal. So let's shrink it on up. Here we go. Here's the Portugal roster. Look at this quality. There it is. We got Rafa, Beyonder, and Vadi. And so the main question mark is, where's Akronic? Akronic is the best Portuguese player that we have, and he's not here. Basically what happened was they had a qualifier, a pretty big qualifier. It was like an open qualifier into, I believe, into a closed qualifier. But top 8 bracket, all of that. Akronic, his team lost in the quarterfinal round, but Akronic did not play. He was listed as a sub. Maybe he was busy that weekend. Maybe something came up. Maybe he was just actually sub. Maybe he had no interest in playing this. Who knows? So basically, that reduces Portugal down just a bit, I would say, down the totem pole. I think Portugal would have been maybe, like, if they bring their best, probably still not a top 8 team, but could be a spoiler, right? Play for those upsets. But that did not happen here. Akronic not on the team, so that's a pretty big one. Next up, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about my number 4, and it's not maybe a big surprise. Like, it's kind of hard. There's a lot of depth here, and as you can tell how I'm hinting at this, we are going to talk about France. Because France, obviously the team on paper, these are your names, right? This is the triple crown of France. These are your guys. We got Zen, Vatira, and Monkey Moon. I mean, it's hard to say that this shouldn't be the team, but at the same time, Exotic, World Championship MVP. Seiko, maybe less of a conversation around him. But Exotic is the main one of, like, is this the right play, right? There's been talks in the past, and this is like years in the past, where like Vatira and Monkey Moon feel like they can't play well together. They kind of play the same role. Obviously, they're going to have to change some stuff up. The one thing to note with France is they seem like they're more dedicated than probably any team here. They're putting out like content for this. They're probably scrimming like crazy. They're actually getting like good practice in. I'm not saying no other country is doing that, but at least to the public eye, it looks like France really wants to win this. So we'll see how this all plays out. Obviously, if you're talking about just pure talent, most of the time, I would say this team's pretty good. It's going to change. Like Vatira and Monkey Moon both are like third men, don't use a lot of boost. But that's going to change, obviously, for one of them. I assume Vatira moves upfield. Monkey Moon plays that very comfortable third man, barely uses any boost, just controls the game from the midfield spot when they're on offense. I assume Zen and Vatira will do their thing, so we'll see how it all plays out. Obviously, one of the best teams here, if not the best team here, but the only surprise here is no Exotic on the roster. Moving on with my scuffed presentation, we're going to talk about Australia. Australia, we're going over to the other side here. We're going to the upside down. And we got Australia here. We'll zoom them in. Nice scuffed. Look at this. Beautiful. There we go. Oh, man, they're poking me in the face. Gus, Torsos, and Fever. Now, the best team in OCE, in the history of OCE, I would say, was Team Power, which consisted of Torsos, Fever, and Banana Head. And Banana Head is a 2-time MVP winner. He won in 24. He won in 22. Considered probably the best OCE player there is. But about a month ago, Power released Banana Head. And Banana Head has been scrimming with other players as well in Australia or in OCE in general, while Torsos and Fever have been scrimming with Gus. So maybe they're just doing it because team chemistry-wise, they don't want to have to like practice with 2 different teams. Probably behind the scenes, obviously, there had to be a falling out of some sort because Power was the best team in OC history, I would say, in how dominant they were. So it seems kind of odd to change up that roster. So usually when that happens, it's like, well, there's got to be things behind the scenes, right? Maybe someone doesn't like someone or it just wasn't working out, right? So no Banana Head, I think, makes this team worse. I think everyone would say that on paper, but again, obviously with the team chemistry, with Gus very likely joining that team next year, they went with that roster. Now, like Australia was a weird one because they had planned to do qualifiers, and then the qualifiers just never happened. They got canceled, so they just picked the team. So I think Banana Head, like if I was Banana Head, and obviously I don't know exactly what happened in like Australia for the qualifiers, I'd be a little ticked. I'd be like, hey, I want to beat my former team for that spot, but it did not happen. So Australia coming in, I would say weaker than I thought they would have been, but don't count out Gus just yet. We'll see how this all plays out. So that is Australia at number 3. Moving on. The next one that I talked about a little bit in my previous video was England. So let's zoom on in on them. We got Rise, Joyo, and Archie. Now, there's 2 players that come to mind when you talk about England that are not on this squad. And that is Oski and apparently Jack. First, we'll talk about Oski. He's both Polish and English. I'm not sure exactly the realm of that, but basically that there was conversations with FIFA to determine if Oski could play, and he was not eligible to play for England. If he was eligible, it sounds like he probably would have been on this team, probably for Archie, in my opinion, but he could not play. He was not eligible to play, so that's why he's not on the team. Apparently, Jack, he was offered the sub position. Now, again, a lot of people are saying that Rice, Joyo, and Archie is a very likely team that is going to team up next year. And I'm not trying to discredit maybe an Archie. I would probably put Abjack just slightly above Archie, but again, team chemistry-wise, maybe this one makes more sense. And Archie obviously had a really good world championship, so you can't really discredit him there. So this team, Abjack was offered to be the sub. He declined. He just felt like, well, if I'm not going to play, it's actually probably better off for him in like a business sense of just doing watch parties, right? It's better for him and also less travel. It's around the holidays, you know, all that stuff. So I could see why someone might not want to take the sub position, especially someone like Abjack who has a really big following on YouTube and Twitch, where he could just use that time to kind of chill and watch party and make some money that way. So that is why Abjack is not on this team, at least as a sub. And that's from Abjack himself. So that's Team England at number 2. I think that is one where I think there's arguments for Archie. I'm not saying like Archie should definitely not be on this team. Again, a great world championship run. But I could see some arguments of like, oh, where is Abjack? Where is Oski? Obviously, Oski, the eligibility reasons is why he's not here. And again, we don't know if necessarily he would have been on this team, even if he was eligible. But, you know, that's for another day. Last but not least, you know, we got to save the best for last. We got to talk about the US of A. Here we go. We got Daniel, Atomic, and First Killer? Interesting. So, there's a couple notes here. I'm poking myself in the face again. There we go. So, Daniel... We'll just shift here. There we go. Daniel, Atomic, and First Killer. Beast Mode decided not to play in this. If Beast Mode was going to play, that would have been the team. There's no doubts about that. Sathu was not contacted at all by FIFA for the coaching role. That is going to be Torment. Those were his words. And the reason why Beast Mode's not going is he says there's a lot of stuff going on at home. He's trying to build a new house and all this stuff. So he's just taking some time to do that. So he decided to opt out. So that is both off-season tournaments. Beast Mode's like, you know what? I'm good. Daniel and Atomic, formerly of G2, not on G2 anymore. There's some conversation going on that full team will very likely go with Energy, but it could go with someone else. They decided to play with First Killer. Now, the other option, probably the only other option I would say is probably LJ. Daniel plus LJ have played together in the past, and they didn't fare that well. That is when Daniel was on Space Station, and then he transferred over to V1 in the, what was it, the 22-23 season, near the back half of that season. So I could see maybe like, hey, it just didn't work last time. It's been 2 years, right? So it's like, or maybe at least a year. So you would think like, oh, maybe they could make it work. I assume they tried him out. I'm not saying they didn't, but they decided to go with First Killer. Obviously, First Killer, the stock is at an all-time low, I would say, for First Killer. But he does get the spot. It just kind of shows how much respect players have for First Killer to want them on teams like this. So we'll see how that all plays out. Daniel and Atomic, they've had to play another offseason event without Beast Mode, and they fared pretty well. A top 4 finish. That was with NAS. So we'll see how this plays out with First Killer. Still, I would say, a top 4 team in this tournament, and can definitely do some damage and can possibly win it all. So let me know in the comments below, like if I missed any of the surprise roster moves from the FIFAe World Cup. I don't think I really missed too much here, but that'll do it for this video. Let me know what your biggest roster move is out of all these that you did not expect, and what is your dream roster that didn't make it. Maybe what's your dream roster for like a Canada or something, a team that is not even here, or a country that is not even here. But that'll do it for this one. We'll probably do a power rankings at some point for the World Cup, and then we'll probably do your proper predictions as well in the coming weeks before the tournament. Again, the tournament is December 5th through the 8th. I believe it's on twitch.tv/FIFAe. I could be wrong about that one. But you'll be able to find it at that time. So it is coming up. Very exciting stuff. We'll see what country reigns supreme in Rocket League. But until then, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.